Up Close with Carlos Sang, celebrating art, entertainment, and the human spirit. Laurie Kynaston, I'm so honored to be sitting down with you today. Thank you so much.
Ah, not at all. Thanks for having me. So nice to chat with you.
Yeah, so I feel like Terence Rattigan is sort of going through quite an exciting revival with, several big productions popping up. Why do you think his stories and his characters are resonating with audiences in particular today?
Wow. Straight in there. Well, Rattigan is an iconic writer. He delves into the world of human relationships so beautifully and always has. Obviously in the kind of the 50s and 60s, well, the 50s he was so prolific and wrote beautiful characters like Hester in Deep Blue Sea and After the Dance and French Without Tears, and like he was really kind of everybody's go-to playwright. And then in the 60s, when people like John Osborne came along and they called him stuffy and they were kind of the angry young men, and he kind of fell out of favor, which is why actually he wrote Man and Boy. He kind of wanted this as his sort of last ditch attempt to say that he was relevant and was interesting and didn't just write stories about middle class families with posh people's problems. I think he showed that he's amazing at writing about what is at the heart of families, the heart of humanity, people's worries, insecurities, relationship problems. I just think he has such a beautiful scope of emotion, and it's a total pleasure to get to play that every night. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's gorgeous writing. And yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Man and Boy, came out during that backdrop of the angry young men era. And I feel like this play itself has like an angry undertone to it as well.
Yeah.
Were you surprised that Man and Boy wasn't, initially successful when it first came out? And were you hesitant at all about doing a slightly lesser known Ratigan play?
No, I was very excited to do a lesser known Rattigan play. There have been thousands of productions of his other works, and that's fantastic. My first job was a Rattigan play. When I was 18, I did the Winslow Boy up at Theatre Clwyd, which is my local theatre up in North Wales. Um, and so it's really exciting to get to do something that maybe hasn't been as widely produced. It's always great when you look at the front of a play text and you see who's played that part before. But with these, massive plays, you know that thousands of people have done it. But with Man and Boy, it's a much smaller pool. And, there are probably reasons why it hasn't been done that many times. There's quite a lot of finance in it. That our brilliant director, Anthony Lau, has done a really good job of kind of taking a lot of that down. And so it's not, in the original unabridged script, it's much longer and there's much more about that. But our production has certainly made that a bit more succinct. But yeah, it was really exciting. I love Rattigan, and he treads the board so carefully and joyfully, having very serious moments and moments of complete agony, and then undercutting it with some hilarious lines like "Your girlish intuition has led you astray," or "You exaggerate abominably." Like that as an actor is both a challenge and a joy to get to say things like that.
Yeah, I mean, what was sort of like your first reaction to reading the script, and what was your reaction to Basil Anthony as well reading it too?
I read it, so I got sent it by my agent, and I skim read it, and I remember, and it was the unabridged. I think it was nearly the unabridged version. I remember being like, "Ooh, it kind of feels quite dense," and I was like trying to rush through it. It's what when you're an actor and you've got an audition, you want to read the whole script so that you can say to the director that you've read it all. But you don't necessarily, if you haven't got loads of time, you don't necessarily take it all in. So I was kind of like skimming through it and being like, God, this feels like I can't quite get a grasp of what this is. And it feels there was quite a lot of finance stuff in it, and there was quite a lot of there was bits that I weren't in, and I was just thinking, oh God, I can't quite get my head around this. And then I did the audition, and it went well. And then I went back when I knew that I had a recall for it. I went back and I was like, I'm just going to sit with each act because it was three acts at that time. I'm going to sit and not rush. I'm going to read one act at a time with a big break in the middle, even if I just read one a day, and really took my time and poured over it. And I just remember just seeing all this humor come to life, which was lovely, that I didn't see necessarily in the first bit, and this humanity. Um, and I just loved it, and I still love it. And there's shocking moments in it. There's very funny moments. There's tender moments. There's, frightening bits, and I just remember absolutely loving it. And with Basil, I think he's a man with quiet dignity and humanity. He's quick to forgive, as I think lots of us are. He forgives his dad for, I don't know whether we can talk about spoilers in this podcast, but his dad has done some pretty murky stuff, and Basil forgives him in some ways. And he's also mentioned about 3 times in the first few pages that why do you dislike yourself so much? People say to him. And so that's quite a difficult thing as an actor to play that. When you're told explicitly this character dislikes himself, then you have to really dig into those questions of why, and how do you portray that to an audience? How do you portray to 400 people who've just met you that you don't like yourself if it's not necessarily in the text? Not that it's not in the text, but it's quite a big like flashing thing. It's like when script says he cries, you're like, oh great, he cries, does he? Let's see whether that happens every night. So yeah, I really dug into him, and Anthony Lau, our director, has been so brilliant and generous with his time, and I trust him implicitly. And yeah, I've really, really loved getting to know Basil and getting to figure him out. And there's still things I'm figuring out, and I think that's the joy of really good writing, that there's different ways you can play it. There's different ways you can play it every night, basically.
Yeah, I mean, such an interesting set of characters and such compelling circumstances that they're all in. Money
Mm.
is, of course, a big theme in the play, and it carefully examines different systems of power. Would you say working on this play has changed your attitude towards money and capitalism yourself?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know whether it has really. It has very recognizable figures. Gregor, who is played expertly by Ben Daniels, is very much a sort of, I don't want this to be the headline, but a sort of Epstein, Elon Musk, Rockefeller character who is like these big gargantuan men of business who get away with stuff because they're charming and they know people's secrets. And it feels like a very pressing time to be putting this production on, especially with the files that are coming out at the moment, which is abhorrent. There's a theme of that in our play, and it's very interesting to see people with their head in their hands at those moments, which is very exciting to get to hold a mirror up to the audience at the moment. I don't think it's necessarily changed how I feel about money. I guess it just kind of shows the same old tropes, that it's these slippery men who get away with things all the time, and it's kind of very pertinent that that was still the case in 1963 when Rattigan wrote this. I hope it won't be, but it would probably be the case in 2063. But yeah, it's great that these themes are so universal, I guess, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not
definitely.
great that these themes are universal, but it's interesting how, in 60 years we're still talking about the same people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also, coming to each night, does playing in the round also change the way that you approach the text and the character as well? Is it more challenging, keeping yourself visible to everyone around you?
Yeah, it is. It's really challenging. Yeah, as you say, we're in the round, and I've never done that before, certainly in like a full-scale production. So it's definitely a challenge, but it's also quite liberating as well and freeing, until the audiences, like we've had some very, very quiet audiences who don't know whether they're allowed to laugh or be vocal or whatever. And so then you do walk out and you feel a little bit like there's 400 people surrounding you, and you feel quite exposed on there. But it's fun. It's also fun to always, have to remember to bring your thoughts up, and because we're not just in the round, but the Dorfman is quite high compared to how wide it is. So there's people sort of right above us. So yeah, we've got to take those thoughts up and behind and make sure that everyone's included. And that's a really good thing to remember as an actor, and a good challenge to kind of remember to show everybody how you're feeling. And if there's also, there are points of melodrama in this show. In fact, the whole thing does have a sense of that. It can be quite heightened. So it allows you to be able to share with the whole audience how you're feeling. Maybe that a more like grainy, naturalistic performance wouldn't. We're not like showing, not telling, but there are moments where we can really let the whole audience into it, which is quite liberating, actually.
Yeah, I feel like the National Theatre itself is sort of, a spiritual home for actors. It's like a shrine to the
Mm.
theatre gods. Has the dream of working at the National, lived up to expectations?
Yeah, it definitely has. I've absolutely loved being at the National. It's, as you say, been a dream of lots of actors, certainly of mine. To get to do it with a Rattigan play, which was my way into the industry, feels like a kind of full circle moment for me, which is lovely. The cast that we're working with are so brilliant and naughty and funny, and we have a really, really good time out there. And yeah, the National's great. Everyone is so they really look after you there, and it kind of feels when you walk in, there's loads of entrances into the building. You can kind of walk through the bit. It's called the Max Rayner Center, which is where they make all the props and make the sets and design everything. And I walk through there to rehearsals, and it kind of feels when you walk through there like that old Hollywood feel of walking through the Warner Brothers set in the 30s, and there's two people dressed as aliens, and then there's two old guys walking through with a mirror and a ladder under their arm, and there's those people filming that kind of thing. It just feels like there's something happening all the time, and that's really exciting. I think there's something like 1,000 people who work backstage at the National, which is just mad to me because you also have all the offices up there and outreach and teaching and learning and the NT at home and the filming stuff. So there's so many people there, and there's something really glorious about all of those people being there because they want to make plays. There's something so beautiful about that. And, when you're at school and you might be the only person in your school who really wants to go make plays, and then all of a sudden you get to work in a building where 1,000 people from all of their schools wanted to make plays. There's something quite beautiful about that, I think.
Yeah, it's a really amazing place. Yeah, I also want to touch on, I feel like between this, The Sun, and Long Day's Journey in Tonight, you've played a
Mm.
number of sons with difficult father-son
I
relationships.
know.
Yeah, I was wondering, how have those experiences shaped your own view of, what a father-son relationship looks like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I can state for the record that me and my dad have a really good relationship. He's lovely. So I'm not really drawing on necessarily my own personal relationships to play these parts, but it does intrigue me as to why I get cast in these things because you're right, Nicholas from The Sun, very, very fraught relationship with his dad and a strong sort of mental health storyline in it. Long Day's Journey into Night with brilliant Brian Cox, hugely tumultuous relationship with his dad. And he is suffering from tuberculosis and is quite knackered and battered. And again, he was a poet, like much like Basil is a pianist in this play. And then yeah, this play, a very fraught family father dynamic of betrayal and loyalty. I don't really know what it is about me that is cast. I don't really. Uh, I don't really know why. Maybe someone can tell me, but or my therapist can tell me that. But yeah, I don't have kids. I have lots of nephews and nieces and three brothers, and so I kind of feel like I've got a good uncle relationship with them, and they're a joy. But yeah, it's not really changed how I feel about my own dad, but it's certainly intriguing.
Yeah, certainly. I feel like it's also a very interesting exploration into masculinity as well and how that's
Yeah.
evolved over the years. Like what sort of been like your takeaway about, what it means to be a man today as well?
Well, I think Basil is quite a nice example of how to be a man. He's loyal, he has integrity, he is a pianist, he's kind of artsy, he listens, he forgives. There's things that he shouldn't do. He is quick to anger, and I think he gets that from his dad. But I think he's quite a nice example of masculinity, especially in that era in the 1930s, and certainly compared to his father, who was much more of a tyrant. Um, I don't know if it's massively changed how I feel about masculinity, but it's been great to explore that in the room. And Ben and Anthony certainly were very interested in masculinity and the takeaways from that, and generational trauma and what we pick up from our parents and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think Basil he's quite a nice, harmless guy, and really enjoy playing him. I really do. It's good fun.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first came across you in The Sun playing Nicholas, in the West End, and it was also such a big moment at the time as well.
Mm.
Did you have an idea of what sort of impacts the show might have on people?
Well, we did it at the Kiln first in Kilburn, and it went really well. I mean, we got crazy reviews. I think it was like 5 stars across the board. And I know reviews shouldn't matter, but for a small show off West End to have that kind of reaction was just beautiful, really. Obviously, it was a great team, and Florian Zeller, who'd written The Father, which I think has either won or got nominated for an Oscar, and The Mother, and so this was the third in his trilogy. So we knew that we were in very safe hands, especially with Mike Longhurst, who was our director. But it was the kind of perfect storm for us, really. We were a small company. There were only 6 of us at the time in the cast before we had any understudies, and it was just beautiful. We made it over there, and it was really hard work. It was a quite a brutal play with only flashes of lightness and humor, certainly for Nicholas. So it was very fraught, and I had to, be quite upset quite a lot of the time, and so that was a challenge to repeat that every night. And then we did so well, and then all of a sudden we were being moved to the Duke of York's, and that was just so exciting. And my name was outside the theatre, and we printed the script, and our names were at the front, and it was mega. And the people who came to see it, I think it really made an impact on a lot of people, and we would have people every night come and have the courage to come and share their stories with us, and lots of it was quite sensitive and sad stuff about they'd lost children to suicide or family members or someone they knew at school. But then on the flip side of that, there would also be people, parents who would say, I'm going home now to talk to my kids and talk to them about how they're feeling and let them know that I'm always here to listen and that kind of thing. And so to make a sort of impact like that was amazing. And we also spoke, I'm sure we spoke with suicide prevention charities and experts in the field about like child psychology. And so we really felt like we'd done the work to make sure we were being responsible and putting out the work like that. But it was amazing. And then, that was 2019, and then that I won the Evening Standard Award for that role in 2019, and so that was just the icing on the cake. And as I say, it shouldn't be about those things, but it was a lovely moment for me, and I'm really proud of that show and all that it brought. Yeah.
Yeah, I still remember like people around me sobbing and everyone like rising to their feet at the end. Was there like a
Yeah.
particular emotion or message that you wanted people to take away from that show?
No, well, as I say, the thing about checking in with your loved ones and checking in with people to say that I'm here to listen. And I think people really did that after that show. And so that was the perfect thing. If theatre is to do anything, it's to invoke an emotion that you wouldn't normally feel. And to get people to say, I'm going home now to talk to my 16-year-old son and ask him if he's okay, like that is job done from a play if we can get people to do that. And yeah, it was mega. I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, I remember The Sun was also adapted into a film a few years ago, I think with Hugh Jackman and Laura Dern.
Yeah.
Did you see the film at all, and what was your sort of your reaction to it?
No, I didn't see it. It was a bit weird that it would have been a bit close to home, I think, of that I put a lot into that show, and then it was all just a bit bizarre to have it come out and have no sort of not that I should have had input in it at all, but it was a bit too close to home. So I didn't see it, but I'm sure they were all fab.
Yeah, I was curious as well, having grown up in, North Wales, I was
Mm.
wondering, did theatre always feel like an accessible route to you? Did acting always feel like, a viable career option for you as well?
Well, I was really lucky that about 45 minutes away from my house was Theatre Clwyd, which is where I did my first job. And that, in my opinion, well, certainly then, but and now, although I haven't been back in a number of years, was one of the best countries in best theatres in the country in the UK. It was fantastic. At the time I was there, it was run by Terry Hands, who was the artistic director, and he used to be the artistic director of the RSC back in the day, and did some amazing productions. He's an absolute expert on Shakespeare and classical plays. But what he did so cleverly at Theatre Clwyd was made it a rep company almost. So there was a company of actors, associate actors who were nearly all Welsh, who lived not necessarily in Mold in North Wales, but had maybe trained in Wales or had some sort of relationship to the theatre. So people would come. That there was a catchment area of an hour and a half around the theatre, so people could, be driving 3 hours apart from each other to come and see a play, and they would recognise the people. Oh, I saw you last week in Boeing, and next week I'm seeing you in Hamlet. The week after that, I'm seeing you in some tiny Welsh theatre, Welsh piece in the studio. And it was just always expertly done. Kate Wasserberg, who's now the artistic director, used to be one of the associate directors there at the time. And I remember seeing some of her plays and being like, this is so good. It's so brilliant. And the actors were absolutely incredible. And I was so inspired every time I went. And it was like the perfect way in, really, to seeing shows. And they did a panto every year, and we used to go as a family, and I went with school to go and watch the panto and stuff. And then I did a youth group at Theatre Clwyd called Act Out when I was about 16 to 18, so those 2 years. And again, amazing. And like I said before, there weren't that many people at school who loved it as maybe as much as I did, and wanted to do it with as their career. So it was just really lovely to go and meet all these other Welsh kids who also loved it and were really great and really fun, and it was that kind of coming of age time. We were all 17 and like drinking WKDs and all having, getting to know each other, and it was just like a real moment of getting to meet all those people, and I absolutely loved it. So yeah, that was it was an amazing resource, absolutely amazing. I love Theatre Clwyd.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a beautiful that's a beautiful story. I feel like there's also still an ongoing conversation around ticket prices and accessibility
Mm.
to theatre. I was like wondering, what would be your sort of response to people who still say that theatre is classist and has gotten too expensive?
Well, I probably agree. You see tickets for things like Dracula and they're 250 quid, and you just think, I know they're employing a lot of people and they've got a lot of tech on that stage, but to charge someone £250 for an hour and a half to me is wild. And regardless, like, never mind Broadway, which is, wasn't it, George Clooney's show was $2,000 a
Yeah.
ticket? You're like, are you, what is going on? But I also understand that prices of everything has gone up, so they have to make their ticket prices more expensive because the cost of everything, living, electricity, soap, everything has gone up. So otherwise, people are going to make a loss. But it's just a shame that it has to go to the audience to have to make up that deficit. I think you can have a $2,000 ticket if you want. If you're stupid enough to pay $2,000, fine. As long as you then make 100 other tickets $20, so that people who don't have that kind of money, which is should nobody, should be able to see it and not, bankrupt themselves. I think with the National is great because it does, the 16 to, is it 16 to 25? You get £10 tickets for everything, and they do the £10 tickets on a Friday, and that's a great initiative. I certainly, when I was 25, made the most of that, and I think it was a fiver back then because I'm back in the day. Um, and so yeah, I certainly made the most of that. It would be great if there were more initiatives for cheaper tickets. I think really theatres are trying, and they do try and do, you know, they do try and help people out. But it would be nice if people, even school groups, can get to go for cheaper. And I'm sure these things are happening. I'm not totally read up on what each individual theatre is doing to make sure that people are able to see it. But I'm all for cheap tickets, as I'm sure any actor that you ever spoken to is, because it shouldn't only be one cross section of society who gets to go and enjoy live art. And I think actually those theatre prices are the thing that makes people who are from a lower socioeconomic background think, oh, well, I'm not welcome in the theatre then. That live art isn't for me because they're charging someone 250 quid. I don't have 250 quid to spend on the theatre. That's what I have to feed my whole family for a week. Like it's not right. So yes, I would love if there were more initiatives or free tickets, or if produce what was the show? I think it was Punch actually. Punch by James Graham. I'm sure the producers said for the transfer that they weren't going to make a profit, and they were going to make sure that the profit that they made ensured that people were able to see the show for much cheaper. And I think that is so brilliant and inspiring. And I know that they were busing schools down from Nottingham to come and see it for free. And I'm like, that to me is excellent behavior. So yeah, we can all learn from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Hope we see more of that definitely going forwards. I guess coming on to Long Day's Journey into Night then, which was so beautifully done and so beautifully acted. I remember being, very excited about Alex Lawther and then very excited about Anthony Boyle.
Mm,
And then when you were announced, I was like, yes, this is dream casting.
yeah.
How far was everyone into rehearsals by the time that you joined, and how did you go about learning this role at quite short notice?
Well, I joined on the first. We hadn't started rehearsals yet, so I joined on the first day. It was a bit of a quicker turnaround for me. I think maybe a couple of weeks, and I just finished the show at the Royal Court, and then came on to that show, and I think I maybe had a week or so, or maybe 2 weeks before we started rehearsals. But that happens, and Alex and Anto are both mates of mine, and I believe that they were both chuffed that I got to do it, as was I. And yes, we started the whole journey of the production, everybody on the same day, and it was great because I knew Daryl well, and Louisa Harland is one of my really best mates, and so we had a great time on that. And Jeremy was very generous in those early days to sort of get me sorted, and everyone was appreciative of me being there. So it was great. It was just like any other job, really, in that sense.
Okay. I mean, I feel like over the years, you very much established yourself as a leading man. I was wondering, when you're working with the likes of Brian Cox or Ben Daniels or Malcolm Sinclair, do you still feel excited about being around these veterans, or are they just another actor to you at this point?
No, it's very exciting. It's the joy of learning from other generations and getting to work with people who know how to do that job so well. Like Matt, working with Malcolm at the moment, and he's been acting on stage for 50 years. Like that is so exciting to me. And he's got great stories, and he's very silly and funny. And so we just chat all the time, and that to me is a genuine joy to get to learn from other people. And Ben is so brilliant and generous, and we have so much to do together in this play. And so we had to kind of, build that trust quite early on to be like, I'm going to shout at you, then I'm going to hug you, I'm going to cry on your shoulder and forgive you. And let's do that 8 times a week. And, that's not nothing. But he's great. And same with Brian. Brian has had a, a kind of wild career in that he was always a great actor, always doing well, and he was obviously in the public eye a bit, and then at what 75, he became one of the most famous actors in the world. Like that must be mad. Can you imagine working for 50 years and then all of a sudden it's then that you get turned into this mega star? And I'm sure you wouldn't mind me saying that because it's true. Um, and so yeah, it was really interesting to learn from him about how that was. But yeah, the it's what we should all be doing is spending time with actors from a different generation. The same with the younger generation. I'm only in my 30s, but it's great to it would be fab to work with people who are just out of drama school, because the industry has changed so much even in the last 13 years that I've been doing it, that it's great to have those other perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say is sort of like the biggest misconceptions about being an actor too?
Biggest misconceptions? Uh, I don't know really. I think people might think it's, very glam. There are glam moments, but a lot of the time most of the time it's not. Even when you're filming and you think that you're filming at these like beautiful, amazing locations, you, you're most of the time knackered. you're in some green room and it's drizzling outside, and you're in like a gazebo with wet feet and people coming up to you and prodding you all the time, and you're working for 16 hours a day. And yeah, it's rare that it's glam. Red carpet things are kind of a bit glamorous, but again, you're being pulled in every direction by publicists or agents or people who want an interview, and then you have to go and watch a film that you don't know whether you're any good in, and then you get the whole press watch it and then rip it apart. You think, oh, it's kind of a strange thing that we do, but there's a lot of joy in it, and I think to be an actor, you've really got to want to do it because it's hard. It definitely is hard. And we're not going down the mines and we're not saving lives on an operating table, but it does require your whole life, I think, and you've got to really dedicate your whole life to it because there's no guarantees. Even when you're up, the next week you could be down. You never know which your last job is going to be. And I think you've just got to be someone that people enjoy working with. That's always my mantra of just be nice and friendly and turn up and don't whinge and learn your lines and try and be the best you can be. Um, I know that doesn't necessarily answer your question, but yeah, that's what I reckon.
Okay. I mean, you've done such a brilliant selection of projects since the Winslow Boy, doing The Ferryman and The Sun, Long Day's Journey into Night, and on screen as well, doing How to Build a Girl and Leonard
Mm.
and the Hungry Paul. How selective are you with work, and how do you decide when to say yes or no to a project?
Yeah, I think I am selective really, but my selection process would just sort of be uh, A, what's the team like? Have I seen anything that they've made before? Do I want to work with that director? Is there an actor in it that I've worked with before or really want to work with? Is the money any good? Is the script exciting? Is there something new that I get to do? Is it just going to be the same part that I've played earlier in the year somewhere else? Is it for the same channel that I've just been on? Is it going to come out at the same time? Like, there's so many factors that make a decision for you, really. I'm very lucky that my agent, Greg at Conway Van Gelder Grant, is brilliant, and we've worked together for about 10 years now, and we've got really similar tastes. He's really brilliant and very honest, and I know that he always has my best interests at heart. It's not, he wouldn't just tell me to go and do some big TV show because the money is incredible and he gets to keep 12.5% of it. That's not his vibe. We sort of came up together um, when he's a similar age to me, and I joined to him when he only had three clients, I think, and so we've sort of gone on that journey together. So we've definitely got that trust. Um, so yeah, it's fun, and it's also not like um, this whole thing of like straight offers and you get to pick what you do and that kind of thing. I still absolutely audition for things and self-tape for things and meet people, and the thing that I felt really lucky about in the last few years is because I have thankfully done some nice theatre jobs. It's not as difficult maybe for me to get in those theatre meetings as I know it is for some people. And for me, it took a really long time to be able to get in the room for theatre auditions because it sometimes is a bit of a closed book. And I'm really grateful that I've in the last sort of 8 years I've been able to be in those rooms and in those conversations. And my dream has always been to be able to, as you say, slightly pick and choose, be like, right, I've just done this play and it's been great. And now it would be lovely to do a movie or work with someone that I've not worked with before, or do something abroad, or go and do some TV or something. And not that, I'm completely able to say I'm going to do this, this, and this, but I'm really pleased that I've got my foot in the door in a few ways. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, when you're in between jobs or waiting for an audition, how do you sort of stay driven and motivated to keep going? Is that something that you've had to work on as well?
Yeah, definitely. I've found it difficult in the past, and as I say, there's no guarantees. You can go 6 months without getting an audition or certainly a yes. You can go much longer than that. I think I've had like a year of not working before, and that was really scary. And you think, oh, I might never work again. And that is, it's such a cliched actor's thought, but it does go through your mind when you think, could this be it? Um, So yeah, I think one thing that I like to do is go and see as much as I can and keep my finger on the pulse, what's being made, what's in the theatre, what's in the cinemas, kind of keep my finger on the pulse. But then also I set up a self-tape studio called Hackney Self-Tape Collective with another actor, Tom Flynn, and we run that together. And that has been really brilliant at keeping us both focused and keeping our foot in the door in the industry, seeing what's being made, meeting people all the time. We read in with them for their auditions and their self-tapes, so we're kind of staying limber and giving notes and keeping our sort of director's hat on. And that's been really great, actually. I've really loved that. So if anyone needs help with the self-tape, this is shameless self-promotion, but Hackney Self-Tape Collective in the Hackney Central, we run that, and that's been brilliant for us, actually.
Yeah, I mean, you've had such a brilliant, last 10 years, doing so many great projects. Where do you sort of see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, I don't know really. I'm really happy with the sort of trajectory that I'm on. I've got to work with some really inspiring actors and directors, heroes of mine. So I'd love to just keep working, basically. I'd love to work on Broadway. I'd love to do that. It's always been a dream of mine since I was a kid. So that is something that I definitely love to do. Yeah, that would be on the bucket list. So yeah, keep working hard, and working with people who inspire me.
Yeah, definitely. Just as a last question, what do you most want to be remembered for?
What do I want to be remembered for? Oh, I don't know really. Um, it would be not like, as I said earlier, someone who you want to work with, someone who brings something to the table. I think I really love theatre, and I really love making TV and film, and so I'll always have ideas for things, I think. And when you have a great director, people don't feel like you're stepping on their toes if you throw an idea into the room. And yeah, so I'd like to be someone who contributed to what they were in, put a bit of a stamp on their thing, and was easy and nice to work with, someone who you wanted to have in your production. I think that's quite a nice way to be remembered.
Absolutely. As I said, I can't really imagine you not working going forwards. But yeah, Laurie Kynaston, it's been so lovely talking to you.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.